very good afternoon and welcome to central London, to a room in a rather flashy hotel which I suspect has never been quite so overcrowded. There isn't room for anybody more, and I think it's going to be a desperate squeeze to get everybody in here, because what we are waiting for now is the announcement from Vince Cable, the acting leader of the Liberal Democrats, about who the new full-time leader is going to be. Now, what we understand is that it is incredibly close, the vote between Nick Clegg and Chris Huhne. What we're hearing is that although there were some 70-odd thousand people who were entitled to vote, there is a margin of difference of only 500 votes between the winner, who we think is going to be Nick Clegg, and the runner-up, who we think again is going to be Chris Huhne. And I'm joined by supporters in this melee by Sandra Gidley, who is a neighbouring MP of Chris Huhne. I don't know whether we can just move you back a bit, because as you can see, you're just going to have to budge. Would you mind? Thank you very much indeed. Yeah, sorry, exactly. There you are. I should just move the Liberal Democrat peers out of the way to make room for us. And Lembit Opik. Sandra Gidley, you're a neighbouring MP to Chris Huhne. You backed him. It doesn't look like he's quite got there.
Well, everybody thought it was a foregone conclusion for Nick Clegg. Chris has fought a stonking campaign. He's really taken the initiative. He's shown leadership over the past few weeks, and that's what we need, I think.
And, well, if he's only just snatched it, not a resounding victory, is it?
I'm not going to prejudge the results, otherwise I wouldn't have bothered coming into this room. But if it is close, it proves what we've all been saying, that either of them could run the party, and either of them will get the full support of the party when they win. Nick had one style, and Chris had a different one, and it shows that they've both won a vote of confidence with the membership.
How easy is it going to be for them to work together when we know that Chris Huhne's people were putting out a document calling him Calamity Clegg?
Oh, we're grown-ups. It was great coverage for the leadership election, and it put us on the map, and we went up to 21% in the polls.
Do you really think that was good publicity?
Well, I mean, we can analyse the election if you want to, but this is a kind of unifying day, not one of division. And let me be honest with you, people get under a lot of stress. Maybe some things would have been done different with the benefit of hindsight, but today's not the analysis day. Today's the announcement day, and whoever gets the result that they want today will get all of our support.
Yeah, and most people found it too close to call, and most people, I think, want the two to work together.
Yes. How easy will that be, though? Because it was clear. I conducted that interview in the studio, and they were clearly very angry with one another.
Well, of course, but do you never have an argument with your wife?
I wouldn't dream of admitting that.
And the other problem is, we're tough politicians. You're a gentle kind of individual. You got between two great titans, and now you're still feeling emotionally scarred. But we can help you with that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right, Mr. Opik. Yeah, right. But seriously, though, do you think that it will be easy for them to work together?
I think the party want them to work together, and this wouldn't be a competition without a little bit of edge. And I was glad to see it, because it was a bit bland and boring beforehand. So yes, they will work together, because as Lembit says, they're both grown-ups, and the party's more important than either of the two personalities.
As I said at the time, I wouldn't have advised Chris to do that. It was his choice to do it. But really, we've got to recognise that was a detail in the campaign. In answer to your question, can they work together? They have to. There's 63 of us, and we want to have a lot more than that. We only do that by being united.
Tell me what the difference will be between the Ming Campbell era and whether it's the Clegg or the Huhne era.
Well, I think that, once again, the comparison there is, you're going to have to wait, I think, because we're about to start, but in essence, it's stylistic and probably policy development as well.
And bolder. We need to be bolder.
I think
Ming very cautious. Yeah. Excellent, very cautious. We need to seize the initiative.
Was that frustrating?
That was frustrating for some of us.
Where was he particularly cautious, did you think?
I think generally he was very measured. It's the elder statesman in him. The fact that he'd been listened to for years on foreign affairs couldn't quite have the thrust to come up with the eye-catching initiatives and new ideas for the rest of domestic policy.
And if you look at Vince Cable, he's a good bridge between that to where we're going. Vince really pushed the boat out, very bold, very controversial at times, and I would say the best acting leader we've had in certainly my political lifetime.
Actually, there's a move to say Vince for leader. I've had an email saying, can you persuade either of them to stand down so we can keep Vince? I don't think I'll be doing that.
No, you won't be doing that. But should he have run for leader?
I think he was wise not to, because the age thing would have got in the way, and I don't think he'd have stood a chance against the two. It was always going to be the Battle of the Titans, and anybody else was an also-ran right from the beginning, sadly.
And in addition to that, bear in mind that Vince was free from having to worry about an election. I like that style of politics. I think the lesson to Chris or Nick, whichever of them win, is don't be afraid to be controversial, to be dramatic, to be direct, and speak from the heart. And that would be my advice to whichever of them wins.
Some of the things Vince did when we woke up and found he was refusing to meet the Saudi royal family. I mean, Ming wouldn't have done that in a million years. And I think we have to learn from Vince's leadership period and think about what went well and build on that for the future.
It's going to be, I mean, we're waiting, and we've been told it's 1 minute to the result. Okay. But I suspect it's going to take them 3 minutes to get into this ridiculous room. But anyway,
with such a big party, you see, we can't find a room big enough.
No, that's what you did. You deliberately held it in a small room to make your party look bigger.
No, we once couldn't all get the MPs in a taxi, so yeah, it's good days for us.
Hope you need a wide-angle lens now instead of a telephoto. Anyway, what were you going to ask?
I was going to ask, isn't it going to be very difficult to find political ground when you have got David Cameron in the centre ground of British politics, you have got Gordon Brown on the... Oh, well, hang on, here comes Vince Cable. You're not going to get a chance to answer.
You'll have to ask them.
Cable is now come into the room. Let's hear what he's got to say.
Well, thank you and welcome. You can all relax. I'm not intending to announce a military coup to head off the democratic process, but I do want to say a few brief words about leadership. Leadership of any political party is crucially important as a way of communicating our message with clarity and flair and determination. And we have three former leaders of the party with us, Paddy, Charles and Ming, who have all demonstrated in their different ways, and David Steele, too. And that was before the merger. But they've all demonstrated in their different ways what leadership is about. I think what they've shown in their different ways is that we're at our best at a party when we're challenging, as a sort of radical and liberal voice, the established conventional wisdom and consensus. And I've seen enough of the two leadership candidates to know that they will continue this tradition of independent thinking and principled politics. Can I just say a few seconds about my own very brief interlude? It's had some memorable moments. For me, the finest being when I was, for a few moments, the envy of every man in Britain, dancing with the gorgeous Alicia of Strictly Come Dancing. And those of you who read the heavier end of the Sunday press will have seen that I've carved out a glittering new media career as occasional dancing correspondent of the Mail on Sunday. But I think, seriously, we all need to learn from the success of these programmes in captivating people's imagination, improving voter turnout. I discovered the secret of it when I was carrying out my democratic duty on the sofa with my wife on Saturday voting, and I discovered that you can vote more than once. The old adage about voting early and voting often has acquired a whole new meaning thanks to the BBC, and that's and there's an idea for electoral reform that I hope our new leader can take on. But enough of that. In terms of the leadership contest, we've had a very fiercely contested leadership contest. I think we've all seen that each of the two candidates would have been absolutely admirably suited to have taken on the party to success. And I'd therefore like to ask the two candidates to come onto the stage for the declaration. total number of votes cast for the leader of the Liberal Democrats was 41,465. The number of votes cast for Nick Clegg was 20,988. And the number of votes cast for Chris Huhne was 20,477. And I therefore declare that Nick Clegg is elected leader of the Liberal Democrats. Well done.
Thank you very much, Vince. Thank you very much.
Well done.
Well, there are close-run things and close-run things. I'd first of all just like to say thank you very much to all of my campaign team, who I think did a fantastic job. It's always invidious singling out anybody, but I'd particularly like to say thank you to Lynn Featherstone for an excellent job chairing the campaign, as always, and to Anna Werrin for keeping the show on the road. But it's been a great campaign, and I thank you very much for all the work that you put in. I'm also in no doubt at all that this is a great occasion for the Liberal Democrats, that Nick is going to be a great leader of the Liberal Democrats, that he has an enormous amount of warmth and energy and intelligence to bring to this job, and that we have ahead of us great successes, and that I look forward to participating as part of Nick's team in making sure that the party goes from strength to strength. And I've certainly been very struck during the campaign of the extent to which Nick has been able to reach out, for example, particularly to younger people and get them involved in the party in a way that I think is absolutely essential. Because the future of this party matters enormously to me, as I know it matters to Nick, and as I know it matters to everybody in this room. This party is going to see even greater successes in the future than it has in the past. And I know, looking back, the number of times that commentators, journalists have written us off and said, when Charles was taking over from Paddy, oh, Paddy's leaving because, you know, we've reached a peak, we're on the way down. And then after the 2001 election, when we did even better, they were saying, oh, well, you know, that was just a one-off. The truth is, we're still in the game, fighting hard, and I think we've just elected a leader who is going to take us on from strength to strength. Congratulations, Nick. Good luck. Godspeed.
My election as leader today marks a new beginning. Today is about two things: ambition and change. Renewed ambition for the Liberal Democrats, renewed ambition to reach out to the millions of people who I know share our instincts and our values but don't yet vote for us. It's about renewed ambition for Britain. Because we want to change politics and change Britain. I'd like to thank Chris for his very warm and very generous words, and for the energetic and committed way that he has campaigned in what was a very close-fought contest. Chris, you and I have been rivals in this contest. As of now, we are colleagues once again, and I am really looking forward to working closely with you for the sake of liberalism in Britain. I'd also, of course, who could forget, I'd also like to thank Vince for the spellbinding way he has led the party over the last 2 months. Vince, there are few men who have excelled as an economist, a wit, and a ballroom dancer. You've done all three, plus being a magnificent politician, and thank you very much indeed. And finally, on behalf of the whole party, I'd like to thank Ming Campbell. Ming, you took over the party at a difficult time, and you restored stability and professionalism to us, which has been enormously important to the whole party. Without your work, building on the extraordinary achievements of Charles and Paddy before you, I just don't think this party would have the bright future that we now know lies ahead of us. I'm a liberal by temperament, by instinct, and by upbringing. My own family was marked, scattered, reunited by the tragic conflicts of the last century. I was taught from an early age that Britain was a place of tolerance and pluralism, with a history steeped in democracy and the rule of law. I believe that liberalism is the thread that holds together everything that this country stands for. Pull out that thread and the fabric of our nation unravels. We're a people with a strong sense of fair play and social justice, an instinct to protect the environment for future generations. We're suspicious of arbitrary power, wary of government interference. We want to play an active, enlightened role in the wider world. And we have always put our faith in the ability of ordinary men and women to change things for the better. So why is Britain still not the liberal Britain we want it to be? Look around us. Our civil liberties casually cast aside. Gigantic, faceless, and incompetent government bureaucracies. Security and opportunity in short supply, particularly in the poorest communities. Families struggling to meet each month's bills. Families struggling to balance the demands of work and the time for a real family life. Above all, our politics is broken. Out of touch with people, out of touch with the modern world. And that is why I have one simple ambition. To change Britain, to make it the liberal country I believe the British people want it to be. I want a new politics, a people's politics. I want to live in a country where rights, freedoms and privacy are not the playthings of politicians, but safeguarded for everyone. Where political life is not a Westminster Village freak show, but open, accessible and helpful in people's everyday lives. Where parents, pupils and patients can take charge of our hospitals and schools. Where fine words on the environment are finally turned into real action. Where social mobility becomes a reality once again, where no one is condemned by the circumstances of their birth. Why have we stopped imagining a better society? Look at what we've got. Labour and the Conservatives have governed in exactly the same way. Top-down, centralising. I simply refuse to believe that the only alternative to a clapped-out Labour government is a Conservative party that has no answers to the big issues. Environmentalism without substance. Social justice without money. Internationalism without Europe. So the challenge for my party is clear and simple. To define a liberal alternative to the discredited politics of big government. I want to open up my party, open up Westminster, open up politics for good. To lead well, a leader needs to listen. That's why I will hold regular public town hall meetings. That's why I want to open up the Liberal Democrats to give people who support us but aren't party members a say on the big issues. That's why I will spend at least one day every week listening and campaigning outside Westminster. That's why I will set up a network of families who have nothing to do with party politics in every region of this country so they can tell me what my priorities should be. If you once voted for us, but you think we've spent too much time focusing on ourselves, if you once voted for the Conservative Party but have no idea what they stand for anymore, if you once voted for the Labour Party but feel let down by 10 years of disappointment, if you've given up voting altogether but still care about the world we live in, then a newly united, energetic and optimistic Liberal Democrat Party is the party for you. Friends, this is an unprecedented time of opportunity for liberalism in this country. If we're to grab this opportunity, my party will need to change. We must start acting like the growing national political force that we are. More professional, more united, more ambitious. Liberalism is the creed of our times. The politics of left and right has broken down. Labour and the Conservatives are mutating into each other, united in defence of a system which has let the people down. Instead, we must start where people are, not where we think they should be. In short, I want the Liberal Democrats to be the future of politics, because Liberal Democrats have the courage to imagine a better society, to break the stifling grip of the two-party system for good, to bring in a new politics, of politicians who listen to people, not themselves, no more business as usual, no more government knows best. I want today to mark the beginning of a real change in Britain, the beginning of Britain's liberal future. Thank you very much.
And a standing ovation there in this hotel where Nick Clegg has just made his first speech as Liberal Democrat Party leader. You can probably hear the cheers ringing out and the applause echoing around this rather small room as he promises to unveil the Liberal revolution that he said that was a period of opportunity. One simple ambition: to make it the liberal country that I believe the people want it to be. And there he goes amongst, he goes to shake the hands of his rival for the crown, Chris Huhne, who made a gracious speech in concession to Nick Clegg. It was very closely fought, but just one interesting fact worth throwing in. Over 10,000 fewer people voted in this contest than voted in the contest just over a year ago for Sir Ming Campbell. So whilst he has got his endorsement, was it as ringing an endorsement as it could have been? I'm joined now by our chief political correspondent, James Landale. James?
Well, as you say, the figures are very, very interesting. First of all, I have to admit to an error. Before the result was announced, I announced that the margin was 510. It was actually 511, which is an astonishingly low margin. It just means that turnout, as you say, was substantially down. It also means that both candidates, Nick Clegg and Chris Huhne, both polled fewer votes than Chris Huhne polled just last year when he came second to Sir Ming Campbell. Last year, Sir Ming Campbell got around 29,000. Here, the winner has got just over 20,000, just a shade under 21,000. So far fewer Liberal Democrats have chosen to vote in this contest. In practical terms, what does the closeness of it mean? It simply means that Nick Clegg doesn't have the overwhelming victory that he had sought. It means that Chris Huhne's position is much stronger as a result. He will have much more negotiating power when it comes to talking about what kind of a job he gets. It also means that Nick Clegg has some extra work to do.
Okay, well, look, we've got Norman Lamb standing next to us. Hi, so what do you make of it?
Well, I'm delighted. I supported Nick, and I thought his speech was very inspiring then. This is why I supported him. I share his vision for the future. And
what about this point? I don't know whether you heard. I don't know whether you heard what James was saying, but fewer people have voted for Nick Clegg in this contest than voted for Chris Huhne in the last contest, which he failed to win.
I think part of the problem is that Nick is unknown to many people in the party. To the armchair voters, he's only been in Parliament, remember, 2.5 years. Now that's extraordinary to come through and win the leadership of the party after having been in this place for 2.5 years.
Which begs another question: is he ready for it?
Absolutely, he is, because he's got the intellect, he's got the vision, the potential to inspire people, and I have no doubt that he will be a very, very fine leader of our party. And I mean, it's been a difficult contest, and as the front runner, you're always put into a defensive position from someone seeking to persuade people within the party to back them. But he has done. He will be very good. I'm convinced of
Norman
that.
Lamb, thank you very much indeed. Well, let me just try to get through this melee because I can see Charles Kennedy bearing down. Hello.
Hello. Are we on air?
We're on air. This is live.
Right. Good. Well, I'm live. You're live, and the leader is live, so
Yeah.
we're happy.
Okay. So, what do you make of it?
Very good. And I think now Nick hit the nail on the head there. I thought that was an excellent. Paddy Ashton and myself were agreeing, because we both had to do that equivalent speech, that's been the best of the new leaders' acceptance speeches. He hit the nail on the head, really, I think, by saying a lot of people out there felt we spent too long in introspection in this Parliament, and now we've had a keenly fought contest, an outcome. It's time for everybody to unite and go forward.
But it's the third party leader in less than 2 years. I mean, won't people start thinking you're a bit frivolous about all of this?
No, I mean, I think that, barring acts of God, that this will be our last leadership election for a very considerable length of time indeed, and I certainly hope so anyway. And, I think we've now got fresh basis, a fresh start, and I think that's good news.
I know you commented when they were squabbling during the campaign that it wasn't exactly edifying.
Yeah.
How easy is it going to be for them to work together? That was that Calamity Clegg sort of label that was put...
I honestly think that will all just get lost in the wash now. I think substantially it had probably in the second half of the leadership election campaign. You've got to remember about both of them. They worked together for the best part of a decade in the European Parliament before they came to the House of Commons. And in a sense, this competitive edge had been set up for them long before either of them became Westminster MPs, because people could see sometime down the track both would be very likely leadership candidates, and that's what happened.
Charles Kennedy, thank you very much
Pleasure.
indeed. Awful lot more reaction. We'll be talking to Victor and Vanquished as well here on BBC News 24. But now, though, Louise, from this melee in central London, back to you in the calm of the studio at Television Centre.
Yes, on you go. Go and find them and come back to us, John. Thanks very much. More on that in a few moments' time. Right now, let's update you on the weather. Nick Miller is here. Hello, Nick.
Hi, nothing so exciting in the weather at the moment, but still it's trouble-free. Heading out and about, no great weather worries at the moment. Just wrap up well against the elements, but it's dry and yes, it's chilly and very similar weather to come over the next few days. So through this evening, it is going to be another cold evening out there, but it's pockets of frost, it's patchy frost, and the frost developing where there are clear spells, and there's going to be a good deal of cloud around, which again is why it's going to be patchy frost tonight. Now with a clear spell, the temperature will be a degree or two below freezing, with the cloud a degree or two above freezing. But coldest across the north of Scotland. Here we'll be getting down to about -10 in the northwest Highlands, so it is going to be cold there. Cold start there across the north of Scotland, then well below freezing in places. That's the latest from me. Back to Jon Sopel.
Thank you very much indeed. Well, welcome back to the scene here in central London, because it's 3 o'clock and I'm joined now by the new leader of the Liberal Democratic Party. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
It was close.
It was close. It was a hard-fought contest between two candidates. who threw their heart and soul into it. I think the great thing is there is a real thirst now in the party to be united, to have a new leader, me, who is ambitious not only for the party, but also ambitious for real change in Britain.
But how strong a mandate have you won? Because people will look at the voting figures for this time round and what happened just over a year ago when Menzies Campbell, far fewer people voted.
I think a win is a win in politics. Chris and I have already spoken about it. We will work very closely together, as I will with all the enormous array of talent in the parliamentary party, to lead a party that is reconnecting those millions of people who I think have been left out in the cold, disappointed, frustrated by politics generally.
And what are the immediate steps that you feel you need to take over the coming 12 hours, 24 hours, the next week or 2 weeks?
Well, I want to spell out over the next couple of days the kind of issues which I think are crucial to really reconnecting those people who perhaps have drifted away from the Liberal Democrats, given up on politics altogether, dissatisfied by the Conservative and Labour parties, and show what I passionately believe to be the case, which is that we're a liberal nation. My party shares many of the best instincts of the British people, and I want to reconnect them to politics.
And I know you spoke about optimism, which is a theme that I've heard David Cameron talking about, that I am optimistic about Britain's future. It sounded almost Cameron-esque in your desire to get around the country, to see people, to reconnect with people who feel disillusioned by the political process.
I think people do want a message of energy, of hope, of optimism. That's what I bring to the leadership of this party. That's what I always bring to the leadership of this party. I think the Labour Party, the Labour government is an increasingly exhausted and discredited government. I think the Conservatives just haven't shown that they've got any meaningful policies on the big issues of the day. That is why there's such a wonderful opportunity for the Liberal Democrats, an opportunity I will seek to lead and to take.
But what about the problem that you're fighting over exactly the same political terrain as your opponents? Everyone's crowded on the centre circle, if you like.
Oh, no, not at all.
The flanks are wide open.
Not at all. I think the Labour and the Conservatives are mutating into each other, increasingly similar, defending a political system which is increasingly out of touch with people's everyday concerns. I want to be a party leader of a party that is there on the side of people, not the system, on the side of those millions of people who feel they've been shut out from politics altogether.
How easy will it be to work with the person you beat? The last time I interviewed you, you were sitting next to each other in the Politics Show studio, and you know, the Calamity Clegg name came out.
We've already spoken between the Count and now. We will get on very well. We've known each other very well. He's a formidable politician. We have a great deal of respect for each other. I want to lead this party as a party of unity, and I will do that with Chris and with all the other magnificent people in the parliamentary party and beyond.
It didn't look like you were getting on that well with each other during the contest.
We did actually. We got a lot better than I think people would like to pretend. And we're both politicians who've got thick skins and broad shoulders. What we want now, what I want now, is to lead a united party that's reaching out and gaining more votes to speak up for liberal Britain.
Have you told him what job he's got?
No, not yet. That's still to come. I've only just come off the podium.
Right, OK. Nick Clegg, both thank you very much indeed and very good luck. Let me bring in Sir Ming Campbell now. Ming Campbell, must be a bit of a bittersweet day for you, isn't it?
It's a day for looking forward, not for looking backwards. We've had a very considerable contest, enormously. That's all the photographers in the background. Hard-fought contest between two extremely able politicians. Now we must look forward, and I've no doubt, as Nick Clegg demonstrated in his remarks after the announcement was made, he's got the drive, the ambition and the ability to take the party forward.
Yes. Do you think it was right that Vince Cable didn't enter the race, because he's been getting rave reviews in his interregnum?
Well, Vince Cable's an extremely talented man, of course, in all manner of ways that we didn't all know about before. That was a judgment for him to make. All I can say is that the torch has passed through to a new political generation in the Liberal Democrats. These two, after all, only came into the House of Commons in 2005. They're a new, young generation. They both have an enormous part to play in the future of the party. And there's no doubt that Nick Clegg has demonstrated that he's got the ambition to take the party forward. He's going to challenge the party. Talk about professionalising the party. It's a theme which struck, if I may say, a great deal of sympathy with me. I think the party should understand this is not going to be a quiet time. It's going to be a very vigorous time.
Menzies Campbell, don't you worry that the party has got into bad habits? It felled Charles Kennedy. The backbiting caused you to fall upon your sword rather than waiting till you were pushed, and that maybe you've just become not the nice party that maybe some people in the country think, but rather nasty.
I'm not sure that any political party deserves the description the nice party. Although, if you remember, the Conservatives used to be described as the stupid party. Look, these internal elections engender a great deal of heat and a great deal of passion. But once they're over, then there's only one thing for the party to do, and that is to come together behind the new leader. And Nick Clegg, it's clear that there's someone behind whom we can unite with total confidence. Enormous drive and ambition. It represents a freshness in politics, which is important. And I've no doubt whatsoever that when the next general election comes, whenever it is, we will go into that with enormous confidence, and we'll come out of it with increased representation in the House of Commons.
OK, so Ming Campbell, thank you very much indeed for being with us. Well, I'm joined now by the person who came within 500 votes of pulling off what would have been quite a victory. Chris Huhne, I'm sure disappointed that you didn't win, but how do you evaluate your performance?
Well, I've been around the course long enough, John, that I know, what the rules of the game are. You win some, you lose some. It was a close run thing, but I think we've got an excellent leader who will take us on to greater success in the future.
And I mean, you will expect me to ask this question, but how well will you and he be able to get on? The last time I think I interviewed you, wasn't that harmonious between you and him?
Well, there's almost an inbuilt institutional abrasiveness in a contest, and that's inevitable. But I think the truth is that in general, we've managed to get across the party's messages during this campaign. We began at an average in the polls of about 12%, we're now at 16%. So I think Nick and I have been doing something right, and we will go on working as a team. We were very clear about that at the beginning, and we've already chatted about that now.
But isn't it so easy for your Conservative and Labour opponents to say, he'll be a calamity, and it's not us that's saying it was Chris Huhne that was saying it?
Well, it wasn't me that was saying it, as you know, John.
Yes.
I did not say that, and I disassociated myself from that and apologised for the fact that a junior member of my campaign team said it. Nick accepted the apology, and that was the end of the story.
Right. What are the main challenges, though, now for you as a party going forward? How do you mark yourself out as being different from the Liberal Democrat Party that was led by Sir Ming Campbell?
Well, I think that you will see, with a new leader, a freshness of approach, some new ideas. I think Nick will definitely hit the ground running, and we will see a good deal of energy and intelligence and warmth brought to the whole process of campaigning, which I'm sure that Nick, just seeing him on the hustings and seeing him on the campaign trail, is able to energise and get particularly to younger people in a way that I think we've not always been terribly successful at doing in the past. And I think you'll see we will go on to greater success.
You talk about energising the country. Don't you need to energise your party? I think fewer people voted for Nick Clegg, who's just won this time round, than voted for you the last time round when you were runner-up to Sir Ming Campbell.
Well, what we remember that we've always had in British politics over the last few decades, declining party memberships, I'm afraid, for all of the political parties. I think that's one of the things that we do have to try and turn around and persuade people that actually joining a single-issue pressure group isn't enough, because if you want to direct society and change society for the better, make it fairer, greener, make sure civil liberties are defended, then you actually do have to sign up to a political party. And that is, I agree, a challenge for us all, but I don't think you can hold that against any particular leader. OK, Chris Huhne, thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, if you've just tuned in, let me remind you that Nick Clegg has been elected the new leader of the Liberal Democratic Party. 41,465 people voted, 20,988 for Nick Clegg, 20,477 for Chris Huhne, giving Nick Clegg a majority of 511. So, who is Nick Clegg? What sort of leader is he going to be? What style will he bring? Here's our political correspondent, Gary O'Donoghue.
Meet the new Liberal Democrat leader, the third in less than 2 years. At just 40 years old, Nick Clegg has only been an MP for 30 months.
Frankly, our best prime ministers have had often least experience. Our best leaders have had least experience. And one of the things you need, particularly as the leader of a third party, is to be fresh and new and to not to be dominated by the chamber of the House of Commons.
Like David Cameron, Nick Clegg was born into an affluent family, going through public school and Cambridge University. There was even an early minor conviction for arson.
I did some damage to some plants.
A rare cacti?
I did damage to them.
And you're meant to be a Green Party.
I know. I'm not proud of it. I'm not proud of it.
After working as a journalist, it was off to Brussels, and a job with a former Tory cabinet minister turned EU commissioner.
I tried hard, because he became a friend as well as somebody working for me, to persuade him to join the Conservative Party. And he said he didn't really like the Conservative Party much as it then was. And I said, well, that's your opportunity.
But Nick Clegg became a Lib Dem MEP and after 5 years in the Parliament decided to stand for Westminster. Once elected, he seemed to embrace the limelight.
Well, some people say Parliament is pantomime, so maybe I'm moving from Westminster to the stage here in the Merlin Theatre isn't too big a step.
Nick Clegg was among the 62 Lib Dems elected in 2005, an 80-year record for the party. But the euphoria was short-lived as leaders began to topple.
Over the past 18 months, I've been coming to terms with and seeking to cope with a drink problem.
7 days went past in which there were 7 consecutive sets of reports about my age and about leadership.
The battle to succeed Sir Ming has never really sparkled, until Chris Huhne's team decided to write a briefing document entitled Calamity Clegg.
So I have
But
absolutely
called
no...
Calamity Clegg, that name will stick.
I don't think so at all.
I've said to you before.
I think very clearly.
Can I just say, I've said to you.
We have
That spat led Nick Clegg to lodge a formal complaint with the party, with some accusing him of petulance. But now he's won, the challenges are clear.
To be a third party, you need to be noticed. There's no point in having the best policies in the world if nobody notices you've got them. And he'll say things that I think will create a bit of a storm. Let's stir it up.
The Lib Dems have seen a serious dip in support in recent months as the Conservatives begin to find their feet. It will be Nick Clegg's daunting task to reverse that trend. Gary O'Donoghue, BBC News, Westminster.
Well, so much for Nick Clegg. What about Chris Huhne? What lies ahead for him? He holds the seat of Eastleigh in Hampshire, just north of Southampton, and by a wafer-thin majority. And some people thought that maybe the reason he'd gone for this seat was to bolster his position there. Well, let's go to his constituency and join my colleague Peter Henley. Peter.
John, an audible groan went around this room here in Eastleigh when we heard that Chris Huhne had lost just by 511 votes. People feeling perhaps if they'd rung a few more supporters, if they'd stuffed a few more envelopes, they could have got some of those votes out. Keith House is leader of the local council, Liberal Democrat Council, of course, here.
Absolutely.
Quite a Liberal Democrat stronghold, isn't it?
It certainly is a Liberal Democrat stronghold, and it's one that we're very proud to be supporting Chris in. He'll go on to an even bigger win at the next election here.
What did you make of Nick Clegg there?
Well, Nick is going to be a great leader for the Liberal Democrats. I think one thing which is different about the Lib Dems is that we're a bit like a close family. We're not the warring tribes of the two other parties, so we're not going to have a period of infighting or anything like that. We'll get on with the job of promoting Nick as a great leader for the Liberal Democrats for the future.
Chris Huhne's been praised for his sharp elbows, or he said he's got, as a tough campaigner, and that came through in this. But he only just missed it. Do you wish his elbows had been a little bit sharper?
Well, in some ways, yes. He would have been a great leader of the Liberal Democrats, but Nick will do a terrific job. One thing which is very interesting from the campaign and from just looking at the reaction from both Nick and Chris at the result was declared and their comments immediately afterwards, they're going to work well together. That's, again, something very different from the other parties. We are a family. We're not warring tribes.
Nick Clegg's painted as more of a right-winger. Here and in places like Romsey and Winchester, you face a challenge from the Conservatives under David Cameron. Is he a better person than Chris Huhne, do you think, to beat off that challenge?
I think they will perform equally well in that regard. I think the thing with it...
The campaign's over now.
It's not a left-right thing in that sense. And it was very interesting listening to what Nick Clegg said in his acceptance speech. Chris Huhne could have said exactly the same words. It would have been delivered slightly differently, but the message is fundamentally the same. We're about a different type of politics. We're about civil liberties. We're about saying the state is too big. Let's let people get on with leading their own lives, not having them told what to do. Things like the identity card campaign that Nick ran during his campaign. All those are key messages that appeal both to Labour and Conservative voters.
But when Nick Clegg was talking there about reconnecting with people, with the public generally, isn't it a bit poor that even within your own party, the number of votes went down?
No, I think, again, Chris Huhne said just a few moments ago in his comments that one of the problems that political parties have got is that all political parties have a declining membership. So you need to look at the ratio of people voting, not just the raw figures. What I think is interesting, however, is that in the party, there was a lot of people say, I actually don't know who to vote for, because they are basically saying the same thing. So I suspect some people were actually quite conscious abstentions.
Really?
Yeah,
Just didn't send the ballot paper back?
Just didn't send the ballot paper back. But it's like that in a public election, isn't it? In some local elections, we have only 25% of the people voting. One of the challenges for all politicians, whether they're at local or national or international level, is to try to do just what Nick Clegg said, which is get out there, engage more with people, more with communities, and actually give them reasons positively to go and vote at the next election.
Right, Keith House, thank you. There's been quite a bit of tension in this room waiting for the result. They knew, as I think the result showed, that it was a close-run thing, despite a lot of the talk about Chris Huhne doing well. And there is a feeling that if only they tried a little bit harder, their man could have done it.
OK, Peter Henley there in Eastleigh near Southampton in Hampshire. Thank you very much indeed. Our chief political correspondent, James Allen. We've almost got a bit of room now to breathe, James. Finally, they've gone, some of these people. What do you make of it all?
Well, I think what's fascinating about this is clearly we now know that the Liberal Democrats have not overwhelmingly endorsed their leader. It was close. They were pretty evenly divided. So he doesn't have the overwhelming mandates that he might have had. Secondly, the turnout is substantially down. The Liberal Democrats are clearly, I think, getting tired of leadership contests. That they're just not as interested in it as they once were. I think they will be quite happy for a period of stability now. Thirdly, the challenge now is for Nick Clegg is to get himself known. People like you and me know about him. The Westminster Village knows about Nick Clegg, but most voters will not have heard much about him. His job now is to get out and to get his voice heard. Vince Cable, the former acting leader, said in his before he made the announcement of who had won, said that he commented on the fact that he's a dancer. He'd been on television dancing with one of the candidates in Strictly Come Dancing. And he said that the Liberal Democrats must learn from that, the fact that they must engage with popular culture, popular television shows like that, to get their voice heard. So I don't think that's necessarily instruction on Nick Clegg to go and dance, but to think about that kind of thing, just to get on television as much as possible, to cut through. And only then can the party say, this is what our message is, because it doesn't matter how finely